right, so today we have Liz Saxton with us today. Liz is the president of Southern Marketing Team, a full-service marketing agency based in Savannah. What they do is they help businesses bloom and reach their full potential. And today she's joining us to talk about website and digital marketing. So, Liz, thank you so much for helping us tackle a very important and complicated subject today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Philip. I'm delighted to be here.
Awesome. So, the problem I have when we try to talk about something like this, and in our time constraints, is we talk website marketing. It's like its own world. In fact, people, I think, most small businesses, when they think of marketing, they think straight up of website and digital marketing. So it's such a huge beast. Maybe you could kind of just give us some background on how you got to enter this crazy world. How did you enter the realm of marketing, and more specifically website and digital marketing?
Yeah. Okay. So way back when, we're not going to age ourselves, right? My very first job coming out of school was I was working as a business analyst, and then that transitioned into a marketing based role.
Okay.
And after about 3 years of that, it turned into a full-blown marketing management position where I was working for a very large company, and they entrusted me with a huge section of their marketing strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And I fell in love instantly. It was something that it allowed me to be a couple of things. It allowed me to be creative.
Mm-hmm.
It allowed me to make an impact and see a difference. Um, and I think a lot of jobs, people do things, but you don't always see the impact. You don't always see the
Mm-hmm.
final product or the final outcome. And marketing, if it's done properly, you get to see the full thing come to life, and it can really change a business and have huge impacts if it's done properly. And that's just not website, that's marketing just in general. So yeah.
Right. And I can
Yeah.
tell you definitely have a knack for it. It seems like it just kind of fits you, right?
Yeah, I really, really enjoy it. It allows me to connect with people, and it allows me to listen to business issues and then translate that into a strategy for that business to full potential, which is always important as a business owner, because sometimes your back's against the wall or you've hit a plateau and you don't always know what to do next.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you need to have a conversation with maybe someone outside of your realm or outside of your industry that can bring in new insight, new perspective. I think that is the number one thing that small businesses struggle with. They think they have to do everything, and they
Mm-hmm.
can't afford to go outside of that bubble.
Yep.
And that is very constraining, on the mind, as well as it can turn into financial issues too.
Right. And I think that's exactly why I want you here today, to help us business leaders take something that can quickly become just overwhelming, because there's just so much. Like, you read this blog and that blog and hear this podcast, and everybody talks, well, you should do this, you should do that. And a lot of it circles around this whole website marketing discussion we're having today. So maybe we can transition into kind of helping us get up to speed with where you see the state of the website marketing business industry today. Because I mean, we've come a long way, especially in the era of the post-COVID era, and you've witnessed it firsthand running Southern Marketing Team. It wasn't too long ago in our lifetimes where, pre-internet bubble, I mean, people didn't even think about having a website or using the internet for business at all. To then, about a decade or so later, then you have the cloud, and so more businesses at least have some kind of website information page, and then they're starting to use more website-based services. To now, and 10 years later after that, after the era of COVID, I mean, now everybody's being told, like, your website needs to be where you make your money. It's not enough to be a brick and mortar and then you have a website so people can find you from a strictly marketing sense. Now it needs to be a full-on revenue generating engine, and small businesses are using that plus social media, it seems like, completely in lieu of everything they used to do. So that's me as the layman, but you're in the kitchen every day working on this with small businesses. What are you seeing as the state of the industry of website marketing in 2022?
Okay, so if you don't have a website, you're behind the curve. In fact, one of my clients they're opening a brand new business. And she's like, okay, well, we got to do this, we got to do that. And I'm like, nope, we got to do a couple of things to get you started. We need a logo. We need a brand guide. And those two things are what you use to build your website off of. A website is absolutely a necessity. It should be a digital representation of your business.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is so, for example, if you do have that brick and mortar, when someone visits your website and then they visit your store, it's a reiteration of your brand. It's not something that your website shouldn't look like this and then your business operates like that. It should truly be a reflection of your business and what you offer and the products that you sell or the services that you provide. It should totally be transparent. It's a necessity. 2022 is a couple of things. I think SEO is going to become even more important.
Okay.
I think that before, I think you could have a website and someone could find you and, that's great. Now, I think in this age that we're in, the first thing that people do is you jump on Google and you find out what you can find out. So you mentioned something that I thought was really interesting related to digital marketing. Social media. A lot of, especially smaller businesses, when you Google their name, the very first things that come up are their social media sites, because those are the perfect optimized sites, so to speak, and it's pre-done for. And when I say that, like the pre-done part is the SEO, the being able to be found and searchable. So if you do nothing else, start with your social as well. I think that that's just as important, because that should also be a reflection of your brand image. And social adds a whole nother layer of tone and personality. Whereas I think your website can hint at that. It can be a flavor of, but I genuinely think your social is where your business comes to life, and it literally is living. So one of the things that when we talk about 2022 trends is I continue to see the marriage of the necessity of social media and the necessity of a website, bringing those two things together where they become a reflection of one. So an example of this would be having your website. What's a good way to say this? Having plugins that sit on the back end of your website. So on the front end of the website, you see things like social media feed, the latest Instagram post, the latest blog post. These are things that are connectors between the two. And it allows your audience, if they find you via web, it also directs them to other places that they can get more information about you that's outside of just what you say who you are. Social media allows that that voice from the outside to come in, and that interaction, which I think is so important, which also brings that personalization back to businesses.
So to kind of summarize that in terms of where you see things going this year, is that I think that it sounds like the expectations for all consumers and potential customers have risen. And it sounds like your website needs to kind of be that brand home, but also it needs to be seamlessly integrated with your other digital presences. That way you can kind of have this nice, easy way for people to do their own homework, get to know you, get to engage with you on the social, but then it's seamlessly tied back to the website, which seamlessly is tied back to the social, and everything kind of interconnects for this easy, low friction learning experience from potential customers. Is that an accurate characterization?
Yeah. And I want to add to that by saying, when I think of 2022, I think of, I feel like in 2020, everything was focused on like being user friendly, making that transition to, if it's not easy to find, if it's not accessible, if it's not one click away, people aren't going to keep diving deep, right?
Right.
And I feel like that is going to continue to be a trend, and maybe even more so necessary in 2022, simply because I don't want to say we're lazy,
Mhm.
but we want things at our fingertips.
Right.
And I think Google set us in a realm where everything is accessible by typing something in. And
Mhm.
they expect that of businesses as well. So
Mhm.
if your site is not a user-friendly, easy to navigate, it's very, very high probabilities that your bounce rate is going to be really high, because we have about a 3-second impact impression that we can make. And so the design of your website is so important, because if it's not that user friendly, you're going to lose people. So,
Right. It's the attention span thing. It's not that, like you said, it's not that we're
mhm.
lazy. It's that we have high expectations, and we want to move fast. So if you can't keep up with us, we're dropping you like a, I don't know, like a bad day at work or something. I
Hot
don't know what the
cake.
thing is. There you go.
Yeah.
Drop it like a hot cake. So transitioning, one thing that you said that was important is I think that sometimes we try to run and sprint before we crawl and walk. You mentioned something very important that I think is important for a good website in terms of a business tool, is its purpose as a brand home. Because you said first thing you need to know when you're building a website, even if you can't afford to build a $15,000 WordPress site, is you need to know who you are, what your company's about, what your physical presence is about, what your brand, colors and brand whole packages. Then how can you represent that well as a brand home? So I know that that's a big talking point for people who do websites for a living, for businesses, is how can you tell that story and present that image. Could you talk a little bit about why that's important, and what's something to keep in mind when people are looking at their websites, and does this that I'm looking at on my own website, is that a good brand representation?
Absolutely. So it's so
I was trying to
funny.
say brand kit, by the way. I couldn't
It's a
find the word brand
brand
kit. I think you said
guide.
brand kit, brand guide. There you go.
Brand
There you
guide. Every business owner, just like you need a business plan,
go. Hmm.
you need a brand guide. So this allows you, and I'm talking outside of websites at this point, but it's so important for the website. So I want to come back to that too. But a brand guide is exactly what it is. It should be the I need to be careful with this reference, but it needs to be the Bible of your marketing business, so to
Right.
speak.
Right.
And
It's the authority, perhaps.
it because you should be able, if it's done properly, you should be able to
Hmm.
take your brand guide and
Hmm.
go to this agency and say, okay, I need you to create me some digital ads that I can run in driving traffic to my website.
Hmm.
I should be able to take the same brand guide and go to another completely different freelance artist and say the very same thing. And I should still have brand recognition that I should be able to use. So, like, a brand guide controls things like your font, it
Hmm.
controls things like your color palette. It controls things like your logo, how it can and can't be used, when it should or shouldn't be used. And those things go hand in hand with, especially when you're building your website, because, for example, like, everything should be a reflection of your business and your brand. So when I say, we're going to talk about colors real quick. When I
Hmm.
say the word Home Depot, what color do you see?
I think of orange,
There you go. When I say Lowe's, what do you see?
blue.
Okay. But it's not a pale blue, is it?
No,
It's a
it's like a
very
royal blue of sorts.
specific,
Right.
blue. And if
Hmm.
you saw Lowe's in like a pale blue, you would be like, huh?
Hmm.
Is this really Lowe's? Because
Right.
this isn't in their brand. And that comes from consistency. So
Hmm.
yes, you may be a new business. Yes, you may be a small business, but the power of marketing in general and going into like specifically your website, because that's going to typically be a first impression,
Hmm.
um, is what do they see, like when it comes to advertising and marketing in general with a brand guide, it typically takes people multiple times to see something before it becomes recognizable. Yes,
Right.
Home Depot and Lowe's, they have spent millions of dollars for that single answer that you gave, orange,
Hmm.
this specific blue. So it's let's scale this down to small businesses. It doesn't mean your brand can't have that same impact. And that starts with consistency, including your social media,
Hmm.
including the graphics that are created. If you ever do any sort of advertising, either digital or print outside
Right.
of that, if you do giveaways, you want that to be a reflection of your brand. Everything that you do should be a reflection of your brand. So it goes right back to what I said at the beginning.
Hmm.
When they get to your website and then they get to your store, they're
Hmm.
the same. They
Hmm.
shouldn't be, you can't have orange walls inside of Lowe's. They don't allow that. Not that
Hmm.
they have blue walls, but my point is you want it to be a smooth transition to go from your digital reflection of your business
Hmm.
to the physical reflection of your business. And for businesses that don't have that brick and mortar, it's still just as important because
Hmm.
like you, for example, you don't necessarily have a brick and mortar, but
Hmm.
it's a situation of your brand is still who you are.
Hmm.
And anyways, I don't mean to harp on brand, but it it is so imperative when you get ready to set up your website
Hmm.
that you hand your marketing person,
Hmm.
say, here's my brand guide. Make sure it is a reflection of who we are as a an industry
Yeah.
and a business.
No, I
Um,
agree.
it is that is marketing 101, and
Hmm.
that is the step to walk before you get to the jog, because I
Right.
kind of feel like that is what guides the principles for your website.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm sorry, I keep harping on it, but it's so important
I think
because
it's important because I think like you said, people are making judgments and appraising us and sizing us up, and they do it very quickly. So, and I think that when you talk about a strong, consistent image, I think that what it does, at least within the minds of the people who are perceiving us when they see these interactions, it's building or breaking trust, and
Mhm.
it's a judgment of our competency, right? So if you've and people will say, well, that's silly, because my stuff tastes good. You don't get a chance for them to taste your stuff if you can't first show them that you're competent and consistent. And that's part of how you build that initial trust or even get a chance to get into the dance. That's kind of the way I look at when it comes to consistent, strong brand image across a website and other places.
Oh yeah, and this makes me cringe as a marketing person, digital marketing right here. Um, I go to your website, I see your website's great, it's beautiful, you've spent the money, you're doing it right, right?
Hmm.
And then I see your social media and I'm like, "Oh man, that's an old logo. What's
Hmm.
that doing as your face icon?" Like,
Right.
"What?" Like and so they just goes back to consistency. And that's why people how do I say this? A lot of times people are like, "Oh, maybe we should just rebrand and like just change it." And I'm
Hmm.
like, "Well, that's like changing everything about your business. You can't just like,
Right.
rebrand." Like
Right.
that's why it's so important. If you're a new business or a small business and you don't have this down yet, literally start. It's like your business plan but for marketing, and it can be fun. It doesn't have to be scary.
Hmm.
It's not rocket science. There is a little bit of flavor to it, so to speak, but it's not something that the average person can't sit down and at least use it as a starting guide. I think that that's so important.
So let
So
me let me take it from the form part of website to the function, because that
yeah.
becomes, so we've been talking about a really core part of a website as the brand home. Now I want to function to more so when a person comes to your website, what do you want them to do? And you did talk about user experience and some of the transition of the past 2 years, the post-COVID era, that's become more to the forefront of low friction navigation. But what are some of the best practices when you're looking at your website design and setup? Uh, how do you think that through to have good website functionality that is a good business tool, be it something as simple as you want it to generate sales because it's a good information hub that then translates into call-ins, or it's a full-on e-commerce site for an online retailer, for example. How do you get the steak to match that sizzle you were just talking about?
Okay, so we have, we'll take that brand guide, and that becomes your framework. Okay, so that's the background of how you kind of set everything up on your website. What you were talking about is now going back to that user experience. And I oftentimes challenge my clients, and I say, okay, they'll request something. They'll say, I want this, and I'll say, okay. So if you've never been to your site before, think what you would expect. And they're like, oh, I wouldn't do that. And I'm like, okay, so we're not doing that. A lot of times you have to, as you are planning and thinking, because sometimes we have this great idea that we need to put at the very bottom of the screen, book an appointment now. We want to throw that on there.
Right.
Okay, well, I'm at your website. Why is that at the bottom? Why is that not at the top?
Right.
So I think I think when it comes to website functionality, I think you have to do a couple of things, and I hope I'm not giving away any secret sauces here, but to kind of share a little bit of what I do with clients is I say, what are your top 3 action items? What is the purpose that you want people to get from your site? Because you have so many. So I work with tons of different types of businesses. I have some businesses that say, I just want this to be an information place for them. I need a digital presence. I don't sell anything. I just want people to know that I'm out here and I'm here and this is how they can contact me. And they don't realize that, okay, so you just told me you want to create a beautiful narrative about who you are and what you do, but the real people to email you. You want people to book an appointment. So those are things that when it comes to functionality, I ask my clients, I say, literally, what are the top things that you want these people to do? And then we strategically place them on their site. So typically, you have the top head bar and it may have your social media because you really want to drive people there. Or it may have buttons that you could click that, I'm going to use, buy local as an example here. They are not a client of mine, but I will use their site as an example. And at the very top, they have click for lunch registration. Well, that button is there first because that is their number one thing that they offer to their membership is networking. And their lunch is a primary thing that they offer, and they want to push that service out there. And then, and then you strategically, as you move down your home page, there should be a variety of call to actions, and they're in order in which you prioritize that you're telling people that it's important. So, it goes back to that you have 3 seconds to make an impression. So having your page load fast enough is step 1. I know that sounds silly, but we've all sat on the site where it spins and you're like, out of here. And we typically do that within 3 to 5 seconds. No one waits longer than 5 seconds. So first off, you got to have a site that's going to load quickly, which is important. The second, it does. We're an instantaneous, that's the direction we're moving in, fingertips. And
buffering is so 2004.
Right? 99. No, I'm teasing. But seriously, it's a thing. So like that first impression, and I'm going to use the desktop as an example, even though most people, we should talk about trends related to this. Is not mobile friendly. You're missing out on 80% of your traffic.
Right. Huge.
80%. This device right here, we use all day, every day, and we use it like it's an extension of our brain. And so if your website is not mobile friendly, that is something
first, really. It's got to be mobile first, really.
It does. But it's called mobile friendly. And that just means it basically takes your website and it recalculates the screen size, right? We know this,
Mhm.
but that's really important because now if they're looking something up on your phone, your call to action area is even smaller. That first
Yes.
impression is even smaller. And
Right.
typically on your phone, the very first thing you see of a business is from a website is the background color,
Mhm.
brand kit,
Mhm.
logo, brand kit, and one call to action. So it's so important when it comes to functionality that you sit down and ask yourself as a business owner, what are my priorities that I want to project?
Yes.
Because people are going to respond to typically the first thing that they see on the page. So if you want
Right.
them to see a new special or a new deal that's going on, maybe having a banner that runs across the front that has like daily specials,
Mhm.
weekly sales, whatever, right? Like that will drive people to click things because we want to know more.
Yep.
You just intrigued me to know more.
Yep.
So when it comes to functionality, I think you've got to ask yourself what's important to your
Yeah.
business.
I think so that's perfectly it's getting a fire under my behind to go check out my own website because I think that the problem for especially small businesses is we want the box checked. I have the website for my business. Let's move on to something else. That what do you end up going to? You end up going to a theme or a template, and then you fill out the thing. The thing is you didn't ask those questions most likely if you're using some kind of template. It's a cookie cutter website that makes you look like a cookie cutter business, which gets cookie cutter results. So if you don't sit and put yourself in your users or your ideal customer's shoes and say, if I went to this website, how would I want to be able to do A, B, C, D? What do I want them to do? What do they want to do? And if you're not following that logic and taking a step back before you start picking out your pictures and colors and type fonts and figuring out your tabs,
Yeah.
you're going to have a cookie cutter, lackluster, underperforming website. Am I right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And you said something earlier, and I want to be very clear on something because I think you said something that I think will scare people.
Hmm.
You made the comment earlier of having a WordPress site is a $15,000 investment.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Just like the reason I opened my doors for business, every company is free, it's free world, right? You can
Mhm.
set your own prices. You can set your own standards. You can create your own quality of work, right?
Mhm.
But to have a good quality website does not mean that you have to spend $15,000.
Right.
Now, if you are you're pulling in $3 million a year,
Mhm.
yeah, maybe you should have a $15,000 website
Yeah.
because you have that expendable income. But at
Right.
the end of the day, you can have a very good, high functioning, exactly what your business needs
Mhm.
website for very affordable prices.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and I think it just means a couple of things. It means shopping.
Yeah.
And so when you get ready to put together your website, there's some things that I think are really important that small business, they give the generic male answer. And no offense males, but they say,
Mhm.
yeah, I just need a website.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I need a logo and I need a website. Like, can you
Right.
make that happen?
Right.
And there's so much more that goes into that. And I
Right.
don't mean
Yeah.
that ugly.
Yeah.
I literally mean you can't just say, I need a website. So when I say the word shopping for a new
Mhm.
website, you have to know what you want.
Yes.
And a good rule of thumb is when you get ready to set up your website, do a couple of things and you'll appreciate this.
Mhm.
Um, what are your competitors doing?
Mhm.
There's no, when I first was out in the workforce, I'm like, oh God, like I don't want them to know I'm on their website. Like
Mhm.
they don't know that you're on their website,
Right.
and it's a good thing to look at examples both
Mhm.
locally, regionally, and nationally, and in some
Right.
cases international examples of if you like certain functionality. Like you see, oh, I like that they have a banner. I like that their call to actions at the top. I
Mhm.
like that when you hover over this picture, it enlarges. I
Mhm.
like it when I see a product on a page and it does this, and then it blows up and tells me the details of the product. If you know that you like certain things and you want certain things, make a list.
Yep.
So when you get ready to go shopping for your digital marketing person, especially for your website, you can have some check boxes, and it creates an accountability because I'm a very creative person. So when I talk, I talk in color, and I talk with my hands, and I see, like, we can have a conversation, and I could do a painting of our conversation, right? But most people don't work like that. Most people, they like, oh, I like that. I don't really know why I like that. So challenge yourself to really to pick elements that you like, because that's what's going to translate of your business and you, especially if you're a small business owner. So, you want your website to be savvy. You want it to have some kind of element of not surprise, but class. And that is when you scroll over an image, it moves a little to the left, or the shadow boxes around the things that make it more appealing. And those add that classy vibe. So now you can sell your product for $5 more because it has a classier vibe to it. You can upscale what you're doing. Those features and functionalities, that does not mean that's going to cost you $15,000. That literally just means you have to go in to your plan and say, these are the things I like. Can you help me make this happen? And it's not rocket scientist, like it's a matter of taking your vision literally and creating it digitally. And I think that's the hardest part from a web designer's perspective is I can create something that I think is beautiful, and you look at it and say, nah, just you missed the mark. Well, there was a miscommunication somewhere. So from the very beginning, when you're starting to build your website, or you're wanting to make changes, be very specific on what you want, because the sky is the limit. Your website is a matter of putting in a code or changing your template if you want to go with a template, or it's the little things, but it's very hard to make adjustments on the fly. It's a lot easier to get it right from the beginning. So I encourage people to have examples of what you like. Know what you want, because it's going to be a reflection of your brand. I can build anything. I want to build what you like. And I always say this, when I have a happy client, I'm happy, because, it's a reflection of my quality of work if they're happy with it. So, yeah.
I'm definitely tracking. And I think that what we were able to talk in detail about here is kind of that knowing what your website's going to do, being able to have the first creation and then make it a reality on the design side of the house. And you can balance out the form and the function to have a good tool with which to work. So now I'm going to transition as we bring it home. We'll just run through some of the more tactical sides as we're wrapping up the episode to talk about, okay, you got the website, you've done the form and the function, you've got a good starting point. Then how do we then drive increased revenue, brand power, et cetera, et cetera. So I wanted to get you to briefly touch on inbound digital marketing from the SMB perspective. What are some thoughts that can help us understand, okay, I have the website. Now, how can I wield that website to get the ROI for however much I spent on getting the website put together to then drive, whether it be sales, leads or outright purchases, or, how can I use it as a revenue generating vehicle in 2022?
Yeah, absolutely. So most businesses sell a product or a widget or something, right? So I think that this is so important. And this comes back to on the back end, doing a couple of things right. And this is not something that you as a person, as a business owner, have to know how to do, but this is something that you would want to make sure you're following up with on your marketing person. This would be making sure your products are properly labeled, both on the front end and on the back end, tagging them appropriately. So think about if I were to go to a hair salon, I'll use that as an example, and they sell hair products that they use in the store. They want to also project those sales outwardly people can order those. You know, putting in the exact product name is really important. But if I'm you know, you've got to think tactically as well. So when it comes to your products, making sure you give them layman terms, but you
Yep.
also give them the brand recognition of their full name. So I think that that's also really important, that when it comes to the back end of your site, making sure your things are properly tagged,
Yeah.
making sure the names are searchable. And what I mean by that is literally think about it. If you were the end customer and go into Google, what would you search for? You know, are you searching for sweaters? Are you searching for a particular turtleneck? You know, these are little things that I transitioned to clothing. Sorry, but my points are still the same. Whatever your widget or your product is, I think it's having it labeled two different ways properly. One
Yeah.
is the face of it. Make sure it's good, and make sure it has a description. That's very important when it comes to SEO. We don't just use one word to create an SEO. That one word is plugged in throughout your site, or the phrase, and making sure your products are a reflection of what you're actually a business for. So
Right.
yes, I'm maybe a hair salon, but shampooing goes hand in hand. You know, so make sure in your product description, you're talking about things that are related to that product, how you would use it, and make it, like I said, user friendly. Like, act like the person doesn't know anything about your product. You should be able to sell this to your grandma, right? And she's only used a computer once, right?
Right.
But the point is if your products are easily visible, if your checkout system is seamless, that's also another huge component. Having the proper user experience on the front end has to be married with a good system on the back end, because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, this is really funny. I had a client come to me and say, okay, so I sold some stuff, and where did my money go? And I was like, oh, you've got to have everything hooked up on through everything. And that doesn't just mean for selling a product. That goes for scheduling appointments. You want whatever tool you use on the front end to be married to the back end, because you don't always function off the back end of your website. You function off of Outlook or Gmail or whatever, right? So
Right.
making sure that your website is beautiful is important. Making sure that it's functional is a necessity, and making sure that your product or your services are truly labeled,
Yeah.
that you know, and then whatever that call to action is that you have them do, make sure that it is automated and connects back to you.
Right.
So the going back to the example where she had sold products, and it went into Stripe, which was her payment system that she was using, but Stripe wasn't properly hooked up to her bank account, or
Yeah.
it went to another account that she wasn't, you know, using anymore, or it went to a personal account, you know. So it sounds so silly, but these are the little things that will delay you from being successful. And it's literally just making sure you take your time and you're doing everything properly, because a website should be a revenue generating tool for you.
Yep.
But you got to do a couple of things before it becomes that. You've got to
Right.
make sure people can find you. And
Mhm.
that's where SEO is so important. You've
Mhm.
got to make sure that once they get to your site, because they've promised that, you know, you've promised them that you sell shampoo.
Mhm.
Once they get to your site, they got to be able to find the shampoo.
Mhm.
So it can't be some maze of a website. You want everything to be idiot proof.
Yeah.
Kids,
Yeah.
keep it simple, stupid, sweet. Like,
Yep.
just keeping things still clean. So now when they get to the right product, it's a matter of they click it, they say how many they want, it checks out smoothly, and then it delivers on time. And I think that one thing we haven't talked about that I think is vitally important as we talk about cross digital marketing,
Mhm.
Google. Or what I mean by that is because they purchased your widget, now the next step for digital marketing, and this can come from your website or it can come from another service, ask them for a review. hey, did you like your product? How's your product working for you? Is
Yep.
this something you would buy again? Have that follow-up engagement, whether it's an automated system that you're willing to do, or maybe you're a small business and you don't have the budget for that right now. It just
Right.
takes that second of following up with your people, making sure the delivery went okay, making sure
Right.
the product's working properly, because those are going to be the ways. And if you can automate them, it'll make your life so much easier. Please don't get me wrong.
Yep.
But
Yep.
I also understand that as a small business, you can't spend $1,000 on everything. You have to
Right.
prioritize. But
Hmm.
customer service and automating some of those things leads to better Google reviews, better Yelp reviews, better product reviews. Those are
Hmm.
things that when you look at the back end of these huge search engines, which is ultimately who you have to appease because you want your
Hmm.
product to be found,
Yep.
it's literally they rank what the public thinks of you very, very high. So if you can get and marry those systems between your website, your Google reviews, your Facebook reviews,
Hmm.
it is so important. It legitimizes
Hmm.
for someone who doesn't know who you are. It should be legitimizing for them. Oh yeah, they're
Yep.
real. They're on social. They're this.
Right.
I feel comfortable buying this product now. I feel comfortable investing in spending $10 or $50 or 1,500, depending on what people are selling.
Right.
So, and all that comes back to, having a system in place that is repeatable.
Yeah. So let's talk about SEO for just 1 second, just because we've mentioned it over and over and over again. Just for those listening, you've probably heard the term SEO, and you know you need to be SEOing. It's an acronym meaning search engine optimization, predominantly in the world of Google, who has still the lion's share of all internet searches. So it maybe just to make it simple for us, like you said, we got to make it to kids level.
Mhm.
For us listening, what are maybe some 3 things or 3 keys to improving our search engine optimization this year with our websites?
Okay. So, a couple of things.
Hmm.
Hmm. Okay. Search engine optimization. How can you improve your search engine optimization? All right.
Right.
First things first, it goes back to keywords and key phrases.
Okay.
So, if you are a hair salon, I'll go back to this example because I keep using it. You want to make sure that whatever terminology you deem as the most important or that people are willing to search for. So, this is where you have to sit back and put yourself in the seat of what are people looking for? And, as a business owner, I hope you opened your business to solve a problem for the world.
Hmm.
So you have to ask yourself, what problem does my business solve?
Hmm.
Okay, I need a men's haircut.
Hmm.
Okay, so you want to make sure men's haircut is in your site. You want
Hmm.
to make sure that if you have images, you have men's haircut, that phrase
Hmm.
associated with that image.
Hmm.
And that's very important because oftentimes images get overlooked on a website.
Hmm.
But if they are tagged properly, they are a boost and an easy boost for you
Hmm.
as an owner that you didn't have to do anything extra for.
Hmm.
But anyways, so having key phrases that go through all aspects of your website are
Hmm.
very, very important.
Hmm.
And you don't have to have, 25 keywords. We're talking about 2 or 3 or
Right.
4.
Right.
It is taking the core of whatever your business is and truly defining it in its most simplistic form of what people are willing for your business to solve for them. So it
Right.
could be getting a haircut. It could
Hmm.
be, it could even be something even more specialized. Like if you as a business specialize in Brazilian blowouts. Okay,
Hmm.
man, I know you don't know what this is, but this is where you have curly hair like I have, and
Okay.
you pay a lady or a man to literally straighten your hair for you. And it is the most fabulous thing ever.
Okay.
So, and it stays straight for like 6 months. But that's a specialized service that
Hmm.
not every salon may offer.
Hmm.
So you could, maybe your key term is Brazilian blowouts,
Hmm.
because that's your highest moneymaker. Or
Hmm.
pick things that are going to drive business to your bottom line as well. So
Hmm.
not key functionality, but also think about, with your specific products, what makes the most money? What
Hmm.
is the product that I want to sell the most of?
Yeah.
Maybe making some of that part of your keyword um, indicators across your
Hmm.
site is going to be viable. And for those who are unfamiliar with Google, and I say the word Google as in all search engines, they have algorithms, and these algorithms change all day, every day. They're constantly perfecting them, which is
Hmm.
why they are so effective.
Hmm.
So the job of your marketing person that you select, or company,
Hmm.
needs to know and be in tune with what these algorithms are and the weights of different things.
Hmm.
So it's kind of like, think about baking a pie or something. You don't need only filling in the pie. You need the pie crust. You need the flour. You need the sugar. You need all of these ingredients. They have different weights to make the best pie, right?
Hmm.
Your website is the same way. The weight of certain keywords, if they're placed in the right places,
Hmm.
that carries more weight. And as the average Joe, that's difficult for you to know. That's not your area of expertise, and
Right.
that is why you hire an outside agency that does do websites, that
Right.
knows what they're doing when it comes to a website,
Yeah.
because that is what is going to take your website from I have a website to my website is thriving because
Hmm.
people are able to find me.
Yep.
Um, I
What's
think
the
that
what's the
that's
best
so
place
important.
to the best place to bury a body is on page 2 of Google search results. So if you don't take SEO seriously and you understand that if you're 99% of businesses, you need a website to be successful, a website where people could find you and do their own research. If you're not invested to SEO in 2022 and you don't see its importance, and you don't also understand that we all can't be SEO experts, you'll figure it out.
And even if, like, I'm an industry specialist, right? Like, even in the industry, these algorithms are ever changing. So
Hmm.
it's something that I take the time to stay on top of, because that is what my clients pay for, is that extra service to make sure that they are all of those things and staying compliant.
Hmm.
And that is so important. Um, I just can't reiterate it enough. SEO is absolutely, it's not going anywhere. If anything, these algorithms are going to become more important for us to continue to pay attention to.
I think that what we learned today, and like I said, inevitably we were going to have to drink from a fire hose when it comes to website marketing, because it's such a huge umbrella of conversations within conversations. But I think that what you're able to help us understand is that, obviously, almost everybody who's listening to this episode has a website. Their business has a website, but the reason that we'll spend this money and then be wondering frustratedly, why does our website feel like a cost of doing business instead of a return on investment
Yeah.
that generates increased business, is because those little details and thinking things through, and like you said, taking the owner hat off and putting the user slash ideal customer hat on, and then being able to design a well thought through vehicle rather than, oh, I have a website. And I think that was really helpful to take us down that road. So what most people, if they're like me, they're probably thinking, wow, websites are important and I don't know how to do all these things. If someone were want to talk to an agency that has some experience in this, like a Southern marketing team, if they wanted to have a conversation with you or just connect with you to get to know you and learn more about you, what's the best way to get in touch with Liz Saxton?
Yeah. Okay. So, two things. The first thing that comes to mind is I'm always a phone call away.
Okay.
And my direct line for the business is area code 334
Hmm.
672 1530. That comes straight to our answering service. And that's the best way to get in touch with us.
Repeat that one more time. You got to be just like the
Yeah,
commercial. Repeat the number one
right,
more time.
right. Call again at 334. Once again, 334-672-1530. And then always you can reach us by email. That's a very fast way, very direct way to get in contact with us. And you can email us at info at, and it's lengthy, here it is, southernmarketingteam.com.
Southern Marketing Team. Yep. I got
Yep.
some magnolias right in front of my house as I do this interview with you, and I love the Southern Magnolia brand decision. So that was awesome, Liz. You're going to be hearing a lot from Liz, especially if y'all are within earshot or anywhere in the coastal empire. Liz is newly appointed. This is recently announced that she's, I believe, it's the vice president of Savannah Buy Local, and so they picked the right person for the job. So you'll be hearing a lot more from Liz. She's been doing this for a lot of different clients, so I knew that she'd be a good interview about the wide world of website marketing. So thank you again, Liz. That was awesome, and we'll have to do this again sometime.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Philip, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.
You too.
Bye.